Have you ever noticed that some people get knocked down by life, really knocked down, and a few weeks later, they're not exactly fine, but they're moving again? They're making coffee, answering messages, showing up. And you wonder, what is that thing? Is it toughness? Is it denial? Or is it something deeper than either of those? Welcome to Mind Decoded. I'm Dr. Ann.
And I'm Zach. Dr. N, what are we unpacking today?
Today, we're unpacking the psychology of resilience, why some people seem to absorb really hard experiences and keep functioning, while others get stuck in the same emotional loop for months or even years.
Okay, I've always wanted to understand this because I have friends who go through terrible things and somehow they bounce back. And then other people, honestly, sometimes me, go through something much smaller and just spiral.
I love that you said sometimes me because that's the most honest version of this conversation. Most of us are not one thing or the other. We're resilient in some situations and less resilient in others. That's not a flaw, that's context.
Wait, so resilience isn't a personality trait you just have?
That's the first myth we need to clear up. Resilience is not a fixed trait like eye color. It's more like a process, a set of skills, messages, and resources your brain uses when life pushes it. And that means it can change.
So you're saying I'm not failing at being resilient when I have a bad week after something hard?
Exactly. The pain is not the opposite of resilience. The pain is part of the process. Think of it like a psychological immune system. It doesn't stop you from catching an emotional cold. It changes how quickly and how fully you recover. Some people catch a cold and rest, drink water, ask for help. Others keep running until they collapse. Both people got the cold. The recovery process is different.
Okay, that image really helps. So what does the actual science say about this?
Let's go back to one of the most famous studies in this field. In 1955, a developmental psychologist named Emmy Werner started following nearly 700 children on the Hawaiian island of Kauai. Many of these children grew up in serious adversity, poverty, family instability, parents with mental illness, even prenatal stress. By the time they were adults, Werner expected high rates of struggle. And yes, about two-thirds did develop significant problems. But one-third, around 1 in 3, were doing well. They had jobs, relationships, and a sense of purpose.
Okay, so 1 in 3 beat the odds. Were those the toughest, most brilliant kids?
Here's the part that surprised me most when I first read this research. Most of those resilient kids were not unusually gifted. They weren't the toughest or the smartest kids in the room. They often had just one reliable adult who believed in them, or a small skill, like drawing, writing, sports, or making people laugh, that gave them a sense of control.
So resilience came from connection and small abilities, not from some magical inner armor?
Right. Later, a researcher named Ann Maston called this ordinary magic. That phrase changed the field. Resilience isn't a rare superpower. It's built from ordinary human systems, relationships, problem-solving skills, emotion regulation, and a belief that your actions matter.
That's honestly comforting, because there's this cultural image of the resilient person as a stoic, stone-faced survivor who never cries, and that has never felt like me.
And that image is scientifically wrong. George Bonanno at Columbia spent years studying people after major losses, spouses dying, terrorist attacks, serious illness. He found that resilience is actually the most common response to loss, not the exception. People feel grief, they struggle, but most people gradually find their baseline again. That doesn't mean they're fine quickly. It means the human brain has a strong built-in recovery system.
Okay, I did not see that coming, because online you'd think everyone is completely broken and needs years of recovery for every setback. Not that therapy is bad, but the data says recovery is more ordinary than we think.
Yes. And I want to be careful here. This isn't saying people shouldn't hurt or that severe trauma doesn't require support. It does. But the science tells us that recovery is part of our design, not a rare exception.
So, what actually makes the difference between someone who recovers and someone who stays stuck?
That's where it gets really practical. One major difference researchers found is something called explanatory style. Martin Seligman and his colleagues studied this for decades. When something bad happens, your brain instantly asks, "Why did this happen?" And the answer you give tends to be either more permanent or more temporary, more global or more specific, more personal or more external.
Okay, I need an example because that sounds very abstract.
Sure. Say you fail a big work project. One person says, "I blew it because I'm incompetent, I ruin everything, and this will happen again forever." That's permanent, global, and personal. Another person says, "I blew it because I was underprepared for this specific pitch, and I've learned what to fix next time." Same event, very different recovery.
Wait, that's literally what I did last month. I had a creative project rejected, and for days I kept saying, I always misread what people want. And then my wife asked me one question: is that true or just this one time? And it honestly pulled me out. I started writing down what I'd do differently, and I felt better way faster than I expected.
That is a perfect example of shifting your explanatory style. That one question helped you move from permanent and global to specific and changeable. And this isn't just about feeling better. Researchers like Alia Crum at Stanford have found that how you interpret stress actually changes your body's stress response. People who were taught to view stress as a sign that their body was preparing them to meet a challenge showed different heart rate and cortisol patterns. They recovered physically more efficiently.
So you're saying resilience is partly a story problem. The story I tell myself about the struggle changes how my body copes.
That's exactly the phrase. It's partly a story problem, but it's not just positive thinking. That would be toxic positivity. You don't have to say, "This is wonderful." You can say, "This is genuinely painful, and I'm a person who is learning to move through pain." That more accurate story gives your nervous system a little ledge to stand on.
Okay, now I have to ask, what if you're in the middle of something and you can't tell yourself a helpful story because you're completely overwhelmed?
Then you don't start with the story, you start with the nervous system. One of the most robust findings in resilience research is that recovery is biological before it is psychological. If you're not sleeping, not eating, not moving your body, your brain's ability to reappraise drops. So sometimes the first intervention is small body care. Drink water. Go for a 10-minute walk. Call one person. These seem too simple, but they're building blocks.
So you don't have to solve the whole problem in one heroic leap. You just have to support the system that solves problems.
Exactly, and that's a much kinder way to think about it. Most of us criticize ourselves in a crisis. Why am I not stronger? But if you understand this as a nervous system needing resources, it changes how you judge yourself. And look, once you understand the mechanism behind this, you might actually feel more compassion for yourself. Because this isn't a character flaw, it's a brain feature.
What about other people? Does being around others really make you more resilient? Or is that just something we say to make lonely people feel better?
No, it's real. In Werner's Kawai study, the resilient children almost always had at least one supportive adult. In Bonanno's work, social support and the ability to accept help predicted better recovery. Connection helps regulate emotion. Being with someone safe tells your brain, "You are not in this alone." And that actually calms stress hormones.
Okay, that explains why I call my older brother after bad news. I don't even usually want advice. I just need to say it out loud to someone who knows me.
And that's resilience. Not isolating, not pretending, reaching for connection. It's part of how our species survived.
So if I want to build resilience on purpose, what do I actually do? Not in a crisis, but as practice.
I'll give you 3 evidence-based practices. First, make a what helped list. The next time something goes wrong, write down not just what hurt, but what actually helped you cope, even tiny things. That trains your brain to register your own strengths. Second, use the 3-word check when you're in a spiral. Temporary, specific, changeable is what I'm telling myself about this event. Temporary or permanent. Specific or global. Changeable or final. That's cognitive reappraisal. Third, invest in one stable connection before you need it. A regular friend to walk with, a family member to call. Resilience is built in ordinary times, not just during the emergency.
That last one really hit me because we tend to disappear from people when we're okay and then panic call them when we're not.
Ha ha ha, and that's very human. But if you tend those connections before the crisis, you have emotional scaffolding ready. Think of it like building a bridge before the flood, not during the storm.
Okay, I have one more thing. Is resilience the same as post-traumatic growth? I've heard that term.
They're related but not the same. Post-traumatic growth, a term from Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun, describes how some people report positive changes after struggle, deeper relationships, new priorities, a stronger sense of meaning. Not everyone gets that, and it's not a requirement. Resilience is the broader process of continuing to function and find your way back. Growth is a possible byproduct, not a demand.
Oh, that's important because I think sometimes we pressure people to find a silver lining too soon. Like, what did you learn from this? Maybe they're not there yet.
Right. And if we frame this episode as you must grow from pain or you failed, that's just another way to pressure people. The real takeaway is gentler. You don't have to be unbreakable. You just need to keep returning to the things that help you recover.
That actually makes me feel more resilient, which is funny.
That's the paradox of resilience. The less you perform toughness, the more space you give your real recovery system to work.
So, before we wrap, if someone listening right now is in the middle of a hard season, what's the one thing you'd want them to remember?
I'd want them to remember this. Resilience isn't a verdict on your character. It's a process that runs in the background, even when you feel broken. You don't have to fix everything today. You can just take one small restoring action, drink water, message one person, take a slow walk, and let that be enough for now. And if you need professional support, that is not a failure of resilience. Seeking help is one of the most resilient things a person can do.
That's a really good place to land. If you like this episode, subscribe and hit the bell. We decode one psychology concept every day. Real research, real life, no jargon.
And we'd love to hear from you. What's one moment where you surprised yourself by surviving something that felt impossible? Sit with that question today. Thank you for being here.
See you tomorrow.